This is our third year here, and we are thrilled to be back. We are so grateful to Calvary for always welcoming Thistle Farms into this series. I'm grateful to be a part of it. We have the best St. Patrick's Day gifts that would go with that shirt really, really well. Anything you need for Easter is just right there. And this is such an amazingly good crowd. We could just buy it out and be done. And I love Eileen and her whole crew and Chris and how wonderful. You've been to my family welcoming my husband who wrote the Frederick Douglass cantata that came to Calvary this year. Sandra and the St. Therese Lisieux community. There's so many reasons for us to celebrate with you. From our community in Nashville to here in Memphis and beyond, you are doing a beautiful job of reminding our community and our world that we need a lot more attention to the women who have been on the streets and in prison and under bridges way too long. And it's time for everybody to come home and be well together. If there is an Episcopal sin of Lent, and I don't know that there is, but if there was one, it would have something to do with we try to landscape wilderness. We try to make it really nice and pretty. This is a beautiful wilderness. All we need to do is clear out all the bad stuff, put in some bushes, maybe a pool. And the whole idea of wilderness is that it's rough and wild. And to let it be that is one of the gifts. Wilderness has to be a place where you go and are lost. If you know the way out, you're not in a wilderness, you're on a hike. I mean, that's true. Mm-hmm. Wilderness isn't the place that you go to pray what you believe and what you've learned. Wilderness is the place that you go and you pray things you hope to believe. God, let this be true. Help my unbelief. I am lost. I have no idea. That's wilderness. Wilderness is the place where that deafening silence rings in your ear or that din of noise is so loud you cannot hear yourself think. Wilderness is that place where by circumstances or choice we wrestle with our own demons and angels. And so the invitation is extended every year to you and I. Come to the wilderness. My most vivid memory of wilderness comes from the Kalahari Desert. My husband's father was the director of USAID in Botswana, meaning he gave out the money from the U.S. government to Botswana when they were doing development work. So you can imagine people were very friendly to my husband's family there. I was in my last year of seminary, 1990, and I had to go somewhere for a field ed placement for the summer, an intensive field ed placement, and I wanted to go with my husband and his family for a long summer in Botswana. Went and was accepted by the dean of the Anglican church there, who said, welcome, bring her, we would love to have her. Got there, and the first week I was called into the dean's office, and he said to me, I want you to know that I do not have a problem theologically with women getting ordained. I've just never met a woman worthy of it. I was somewhat messed up before I got there. And had my own issues with authority from a long time ago. From an early death of my father, from abuse in the church, from a couple bad choices in relationships. And for some reason, this authority figure saying this to me crystallized it. And I walked out with that thing that we all get sometimes. That's between humiliation and anger. I'm not worthy. He's right. He can see it. Who the hell does he think he is? All of those things. Ran into a young woman who said, I have an idea. Let's go hitchhike across the Kalahari Desert to Namibia. And I was like, great, that sounds awesome. 200 miles into the Kalahari Desert, the truck that had picked us up dumped us off when they found the fugitive they were looking for and got their guns and scattered. And we sat for hours underneath the scrub bush tree, and as the sun was setting, I started wondering, how did I end up here? What choices did I make that made me have to come out to the middle of the desert and sit under this tree and just wait for those long shadows to turn into the form of a lion? Waiting and waiting, and finally hearing my own voice, and finally accepting that all of us make choices that sometimes get us in the middle of nowhere under a tree where we get to finally be in a space where we can hear God's voice. And God's voice came in the form of an indigenous tribe that after the sunset came and took pity on us and brought us to the rondavels with squirrel blankets and got us far enough to find another truck to lead us out into Namibia. It was a huge gift. And I will never, ever forget it. And that's the gift of wilderness for all of us, is to go to those places, if you can remember in your life, where you got set in those places. I'm lost. I have no idea. I need some help. And find the gifts and find the voice of resurrection saying, you're not that far from Jerusalem. Luke has been leading us through wilderness with such grace this season. It started in the 4th chapter where the Spirit drove Jesus to the wilderness, and he gets to not be triumphant over evil but prepare his heart for ministry. And then it goes on, and Luke keeps leading us and leading us. He's talking about the fig tree that's bearing no fruit, that you just want to say, no, cut it out. I can't take this. My humiliation, my anger, my issues, my addiction, my shame, whatever it is keeping me. I just want to cut it off. And in the Gospel of Luke, it says, give it another season. Stay in the wilderness a little bit longer. Jerusalem, Jerusalem is not that far away. And as if we didn't hear him, last week we got to hear the beautiful gospel of the prodigal son in the 15th chapter. While he was still a long way off, these preparations were being made. And then in the 5th week of Lent, we got our last glimpse of it about the tenets, about we are wilderness people. We have to keep going. In the 20th chapter, it says in Luke. It's a beautiful memory. We, you and me, we are wilderness people. We are called to the wilderness by chance, by circumstance, by all the injustices in the world, by our own shortcomings, to be in a space where we find the fruit in the places we thought were barren. Those places that you think are barren are so fruitful. That humiliation and anger that I experienced in Botswana helped lay the groundwork for a sanctuary for women, where we've never said to a woman, I've never met a woman worthy, but I've never met a woman unworthy. That's been the journey of Thistle Farms, and it continues. Years ago, a woman came in off the streets to the community of Thistle Farms, where all women of survivors of trafficking, addiction, and prostitution can hopefully find healing. She came, Katrina, and when she sat in the circle, there were mentors there. And one of the things that the mentors did was say, dream something. Dream something in the middle of your wilderness that gives you hope, that gives you a sense of where you need to go. And it happened that Katrina's daughter was there. And so they passed out 3x5 cards and they said, just draw your dream. And Ebony, Katrina's daughter, whispers to her mama, draw a house. Draw a house. Years later, Katrina becomes the national sales director of Thistle Farms. We begin to have Whole Food stores love us. We realize we need to hire someone just to manage the Whole Food stores. Katrina says, I have a good idea. My daughter's just graduating from college at TSU. Let's hire Ebony. So Ebony comes on board and she nurtures all the Thistle Farm stores. And in late January, early February this year, they say, we believe we want Thistle Farms in every single Whole Foods store in the country for the holidays, 2016, this coming December. All you need to do is fly out to Anaheim and get on the stage and pitch the story. And Ebony's like going, no. What would I say? I'm not worthy. Who am I to speak to the entire Whole Foods corporate office and all the regional managers and all the salespeople? She has cried out from the wilderness, a brave little girl built a house. She can definitely go on that stage and speak her truth and say to them, this story is true and personal. Love heals. Even from the wilderness and even when we think we are unworthy, we can do this great thing together. So Ebony, last Thursday, goes out to Whole Foods in Anaheim, California, and takes the stage. And she gets up and she speaks her truth. And all I had was an audio of it. And she speaks her truth through this beautiful, honest, shaking voice that is the bravest thing you have ever heard. And Whole Foods says, okay, for sure, you're going to go from 100 stores to 400 stores, all the stores we have in Canada and the U.S. But now every region wants her to come and present in their regional places because she was such a powerful speaker. Jerusalem is closer than we think. And while we're still a long way off and wonder our worthiness, we can whisper from our wilderness places that we still long and hope to build a home. And we build it together in love.